Welcome to Arden Trust's first Arden Trust Takeaway session. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about why you should name a corporate trustee and how it is in the best interest not only of the client, but in the best interest of an advisor to be able to retain that business when their client passes away for the next generation.
A lot of times it's just mismanagement because individuals really don't know. They're not equipped to handle some of the intricacies, the accounting standards, et cetera. And under the best of all circumstances, I always say people think it's an incredible honor to name someone as a trustee, but it's really a burden. And
For sure. Huge burden.
It's an enormous burden. And you don't anticipate that. But under the pressures of doing your normal day-to-day lives and all that entails, and then having on top of that the trustee relationship, it is really. And so I think just from that perspective alone, it makes sense to use a corporate trustee. You don't have any of those issues of, longevity. You don't have to worry about the corporate trustee aging out with you or predeceasing you, which happens in many cases. But they also have the expertise and the experience to be able to do it and do it right.
And I think what's most important is the corporate trustee has more of an objective perspective when making those hard decisions, whether it's a discretionary distribution, taking into consideration remainderment. And that often is not the case when it's a family member or a family friend. They can't be objective. So it makes it even more difficult, which then in turn, when there is mismanagement, that's when the corporate trustee has to step in and start to clean and right all the past issues that have been created.
Oh, absolutely. And what's interesting, so we had a case where the individual trustee had no idea around producing statements for all of the family members and being held accountable for producing an accounting that shows them, here's what we've received in, here's what we've doled out, here's what my personal fee has been. And in fact, we've seen a lot of family relationships get destroyed by that topic.
And there's always that pressure.
Yes.
So it is really important. The corporate trustee is really a buffer so that when there are requests coming in for expenditures that are either not appropriate based on the trust document or that are just inappropriate maybe for uses that really shouldn't be intended, those are things that the corporate trustee can easily stop. But when it's your family member and you have to constantly get in front of that person and hear those requests, it creates a lot of tension.
Yeah, and I think it's, as corporate trustee, we have more access to resources, expertise, whether it be the judicial system, if we need to seek court guidance. Right. If we aren't able to make the decision ourselves and we have to seek counsel, we can do that. If a forensic accountant is needed, we have more resources, as I said, behind us. We know where to go. The average individual does not.
Well, I think the other thing going along with that same theme is you have more complex assets involved. So family partnerships, family businesses that folks are trying to run, and they may be an expert at running that family partnership or family business, but they're not an expert at settling an estate. And it becomes this side distraction and keeping them from doing what they do best. And that's one of the other issues that we run into fairly frequently, where we get engaged to do the job and responsibility, which is perfectly fine with us, as long as they recognize they don't have the bandwidth or the expertise to do it, and we get engaged as their agent. We can do that as well, but you really need that corporate trustee standing in those shoes, addressing those issues on a day in, day out basis.
Yeah, and I think recently with some of the tragedies that we've experienced across the country, it's given a lot of people pause to say, are my documents, what if something happened suddenly, unexpectedly? Those are really the situations, right? You have to really anticipate that something could happen. You can't wait for it to happen, and then it's too late. So taking the time to make sure your documents are in order and naming a trustee in advance so that you know that this will be taken care of by someone who's got the experience, the expertise, the time, and so forth, and it'll be handled properly without putting that burden on a family member. I think it makes all the sense in the world.
Without a doubt. So one of the things that I think that we've all encountered, do you have maybe some examples that you can think of off the top of your head around those just pure mismanagement situations where we've been called in
Sure.
to do
We
the
are
cleanup.
frequently called in a situation after the fact because you've had an individual who was clearly in over their head, and it's not fraud per se. It's just mismanagement. Particularly, you mentioned complexity of assets in situations where the estate it's not cash that's sitting that just has to be distributed, which is sometimes the way people envision it. So there are complicated assets that have to be unraveled and distributed, and there's more than one person, so there's the distribution of that, and sometimes it's not equitable. We had a situation where for 3 siblings, one of them was receiving life insurance proceeds and totally out of the rest of the estate, and the other 2 were getting division of property and so forth. So it can be very complicated, and so lots of times we are brought in after the fact, as in that case, because the individual that was named started to try to do it and found out very quickly that it was a tangled mess, and we had to help unravel it. And of course, it's always more time-consuming and more complicated to have to fix it after it's gone awry.
No doubt. So I think we've built a pretty good case around corporate trustees are the definitive solution for estate settlement and serving as trustee. We didn't touch a whole lot on the trusteeship, but I think from the estate settlement standpoint, we've really pinned that down. All right, thank you, panel, for those great insights. I think we've really highlighted the point of a corporate trustee and the importance that they bring to the table and how they can truly help our advisor partners be able to retain their clients through transition. So appreciate it. Thank you all.